street interviewed after this suggest that they're not surprised, that there's no confidence in this government.
Well, as the senator said, you know, the austerity measures have had a tremendously difficult impact on the people there. Prices went up for basic foodstuffs 40% last year, and 65% of the people are now below the poverty line. And a lot of people are saying, well, if this is what democracy brings us, do we really want it? I think it's a real challenge for the democracies in the entire region to be able to maintain economic growth and make the trickle-down effect work.
Senator Lugar, you recently returned from Central America. Are you concerned that what happened in Venezuela could be a metaphor for things to come elsewhere?
Not necessarily. I think there is throughout the hemisphere a general desire to move toward market economics, toward the policies that Carlos Andrés Pérez has instituted in Venezuela. The reason being that unlike Venezuela, there really was no oil income in most countries to begin with. There is really the hope that they will be a part of the World Trading League. At the same time, why democracy is still fragile. This is the importance of the Santiago meeting last year of the Organization of American States, in which the anti-coup resolutions were passed. And I thought it was important today that leaders throughout Latin America affirmed the importance of the Venezuelan situation.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to take a break just now, but when we return, we will discuss the implications continent-wide. Stay with us.
Larry Bird was born to be a champion. He was instilled with a competitive fire and passion that would never die.
One way or another, Bird kills you.
Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ light.
Larry Joe Bird was destined for glory in the game he loved. Get bird watching at its best in this amazing video. Larry Bird, a basketball legend. It's free with your paid subscription to Sports Illustrated, the best way to capture all the drama of sports every week.
There's only one place I'd rather be, French Lick.
Through rare footage, you'll follow the victory trail from the cornfields and basketball courts of Indiana to the hallowed halls of the Boston Garden, where the talented young Hoosier resurrects a fallen dynasty.
Larry Bird with a steal. Henderson by Bird.
Call this toll-free number now and be there when the championships are won. Share the glory, live the moments with the man who touched all who saw him play.
Larry Bird never quits. He has eyes all around his head.
We can always just give it to Larry. He needs to step back and shoot a three.
Bird for three. Yes!
Exclusive footage captures the hard-fought and emotional duels with longtime rival Magic Johnson.
This game is Larry Bird. I mean, he's doing everything.
This official NBA video is a thrilling 60 minutes that you'll enjoy again and again, free from Sports Illustrated. Get your free video and a full year of Sports Illustrated. 54 issues, including the swimsuit issue, for only $1.29 an issue. Save over 55% off the cover price. And you may use your credit card. Follow all your favorites and all the excitement in Sports Illustrated. Call now to subscribe or renew and get this memorable video free. For quicker delivery, use your credit card. Don't miss this heartwarming tale of a boy who lived his dreams, the dreams of a champion. It's the story of a legend. The legend lives in Sports Illustrated. Call now.
Continuing with our discussion now on the coup attempt in Venezuela and what implications it may have in the hemisphere. Senator Lugar, back to you for just a moment. We were talking a moment ago about the leaders of the hemisphere rushing to Carlos Andrés Pérez's side in his moment of need here. But it does raise the question of what kind of influence the various democracies can have on another one under siege, and it brings to mind the situation in Haiti, where there's been very little that the continent has been able to do to alter the situation there. How much influence is there?
I think the influence is substantial due to the Organization of American States and the United States' desire clearly to back that will as a part of the OAS. An embargo has been instituted against Haiti. We have taken the position that the rightly elected leader ought to be restored, as opposed to simply saying that it's too bad that he's out, but not much can be done about it. In fact, the measures are inexact, and the difficulties of changing the situation are obvious, but the continent or the hemisphere has stood together. The United States has stood with the other membership.
And you think this is an important signal?
I think so. I think very important.
Yes, and I wouldn't be surprised, in fact, that the failure of the coup to take place today might not in some way be related to the strong determination on the part of the leaders of the hemisphere, the United States included.
Are you suggesting then that the failure of the coup to succeed may have more of a negative impact on such incidents taking place elsewhere than the fact that it happened at all?
Well, yes, I think we ought to look at it from the optimistic side. The coup did not take place. And I wouldn't be surprised, we don't know the details yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the military officers that in fact supported the president there were not influenced by the fact that the hemisphere as a whole is determined to say that democracy should survive in Latin America and it shouldn't be overthrown.
Shifting to Central America for a minute, where the democracies, with the exception of Costa Rica, really are a great deal more fragile, there have been complaints from several of the countries, Nicaragua, Panama, El Salvador even, that the United States is not providing more tangible assistance to support the democracies there. Is there a lesson in all of this for Central America and for what the United States should be doing there?
Well, I think the United States ought to pay more attention to this region. It's simply not enough to say that democracy should flourish and we should support democracy because there are serious socioeconomic problems that have contributed to the instability in the past. I think we've learned that. And the Venezuelan situation should remind us today that the costs of these austerity programs are substantial and that we need to help, in some ways, the more fragile governments to deal with these kinds of issues. We poured an enormous amount of money into the military side of the equation in Central America, and I think that maybe this is a reminder that we should pay some attention to the other side.
Senator Lugar?
I agree with that point of view, and I would underline for those Americans who are opposed to foreign aid generally that in fact our assistance right now is especially important as the Central American countries and the South American countries move toward free trade agreements, and we move toward such agreements with Canada and Mexico that might link up. We're at a point in the hemisphere where we could have a flourishing of free trade, a very exciting time for our own exports and job production in this country, as well as for the standard of living raised in the other countries. So this is a time of an especially important emphasis upon our investment and our nurturing, at least of those economies, as well as the democracies that depend upon that progress.
Well, Senator Lugar, do you think that countries like Panama and Nicaragua and El Salvador should be getting more U.S. aid now? And how do you do that?
El Salvador is receiving very substantial assistance, and that is the way it ought to be. Thank goodness for the truce, the ceasefire, the fact that funds that went for the military may now go for humanitarian and economic causes. In Nicaragua, our assistance has been great, but there are real problems there with equal justice with the police force. I had an opportunity to talk to President Chamorro about that in the last 2 weeks or so, and they acknowledged some dilemmas there, and likewise in Panama, we're working along pretty well, but at the same time, we have at least some policy differences from time to time. So we're going to have to offer this assistance with eyes wide open that follows our ideals and at least the dictates of the Congress.
And, of course, against the domestic pressures here at home.
That's absolutely right.
Senator Richard Lugar, thanks very much for your time. Arturo Valenzuela, thanks for coming in. Appreciate your perspective. Still to come, an historic visit by Ireland's president, overshadowed by a deadly attack in Belfast. And French President François Mitterrand faces the cameras to face down criticism of his government's reception of a radical Palestinian when we return.
They say diversify to reduce risk, but I'm no financial expert.
I know how to build a house, not a portfolio.
How do you judge each investment? When to buy or sell?
And who has time to follow the market?
Because most people can't be masters at everything, Fidelity Investments created the Fidelity Asset Manager. In one easy mutual fund, it seeks to diversify among and across stocks, bonds, and money markets. And Fidelity professionals carefully watch your investment for you, gradually adjusting your assets to keep pace with changes in the market.
It's designed for those of us who aren't financial experts.
Call now for this free fact kit on the Fidelity Asset Manager.
I called. You should too. There's no pressure to invest. There's no sales charge either. All your money works for you.
Diversification made simple. Call 1-800-356-8100 for your free fact kit. Fidelity Investments. Common sense, uncommon results. Share price, yield, and return will vary.
At the Ashby Inn, the secret of our chicken rice recipe is in the rich taste of our chicken stock.
Country Inn rice dishes made with hearty country ingredients and Uncle Ben's rice. Taste the country in Uncle Ben's Country Inn. Rice dishes inspired by the finest inns.
There's constipation and there's constipation.
Oh, yeah.
When it's this bad, take it to the max. New Maximum Relief Formula X-Lax pills with 50% more X-Lax medicine for maximum relief.
Oh, yeah.
Take it to the max.
CNN is proud to present a continuing series called Democracy in America. We'll explain what candidates are saying, what they've done, and talk to real people about issues they want addressed. Democracy in America, only on CNN.
Here in Washington, we have this late word from Capitol Hill, where the House has passed overwhelmingly by 404 to 8 an extension of unemployment benefits, allowing unemployed workers who've exhausted their benefits an additional 13 weeks in unemployment assistance. The Senate is expected to quickly follow suit, and the legislation will be sent to the White House, where President Bush is expected to sign it. Police in Northern Ireland suspect a rogue policeman killed 3 people at the offices of Sinn Féin, the political wing of the Irish Republican Army. A gunman apparently posed as a journalist to gain entry to Sinn Féin headquarters in Belfast. Authorities say he killed 3 people, wounded 2 others. Police say the officer then drove to a nearby lake where he killed himself with a shotgun. The killings came as Irish President Mary Robinson was visiting the city. This is the first time an Irish president has made an official trip to Northern Ireland. Robinson wants to help end the sectarian strife in the region and says the killings run counter to all she had seen in Belfast. Political bickering turned to near roaring in the British Parliament today. Prime Minister John Major was under verbal attack from the opposition for the recession. Mr. Major fought back, calling Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock economically illiterate. The two will likely face off in national elections later this year. Michael Brunson has more on today's debate, which occurred during Prime Minister's question time.
Mr. Kinnock rose to a great roar from his own side. Prime Minister's questions are getting angrier and angrier.
At the time that the Prime Minister said that if his policies weren't hurting, they weren't working, did he realize that those policies would cause the longest recession since the 1930s?
Yeah. We have taken action in order to ensure that we come out of this recession in a way that will ensure sustained recovery.
When, shouted the Labour backbenchers, as the Prime Minister said that only last night the Governor of the Bank of England had said everything was in place to help the recovery come about. But Mr. Kinnock returned to the attack.
Does the Prime Minister agree with the words of his right honourable friend, the Chancellor, who said last month the policy would not have been different even if we'd known the outcome?
Caused the recession? Did we cause it in the United States, in Sweden, in Japan, in Australia, in New Zealand? If the right honourable gentleman believes all that, then he is certainly not capable of leading his party, let alone this country.
Mr. Speaker, there is no question of doubt that this government caused the recession in Britain. None. This government caused the recession, they continued the recession, and now they haven't got a clue how to get out of the recession.
What the right honourable gentleman has to say is economic illiteracy.
Because, says Mr. Major, Labour would wreck the recovery by putting up taxes. No, we won't, says Labour, only for the rich. Evidence of campaigning on the economy taking over the chamber, as it will the rest of the campaign. Michael Brunson, ITN, Westminster.
French President Francois Mitterrand is calling an emergency session of Parliament to deal with the scandal over radical Palestinian leader George Habash. 4 senior government officials were forced to resign after France allowed Habash into the country last week for medical treatment. During a French television interview a short time ago, President Mitterrand said lawmakers are free to call for a no-confidence vote during an emergency debate Friday. But he defied the opposition to topple his government. The French president admitted the decision to allow Habash entry into the country was a mistake, but not a serious issue.
I should have been informed. I was not, but why? Because the men in charge of this particular affair are of great integrity, and they made a judgment error. They looked at Mr. Habash's trip to Paris to come and be treated medically as a routine, like a humanitarian type of trip to Paris. And in reality, it was a political problem. And I should have been informed, and I should have made a decision.
Habash has been linked to a wave of hijackings. Yasser Arafat used to say he was married to the revolution, but now the 62-year-old PLO leader and longtime bachelor has a 28-year-old wife. Diplomatic sources confirm Arafat tied the knot in Tunis last month, the bride one of his economic advisors. She is from a Christian family. Ahead on CNN World Report, the United Nations peace plan for Yugoslavia hits a snag. We'll have details.
Some people don't know it, but they're paying too much in taxes. Take these two, identical in many ways. Similar homes, similar income, similar investments. But one could be paying 28% more tax on his savings and investment income. That's over $200 on every $800 earned. The other called Fidelity Investments toll-free and found out how to invest tax-free in this free fact kit on Fidelity tax-free funds. It shows you how to earn income that's 100% free from federal income taxes. And in some states, your income may be free from state and local taxes, too. And there's no sales charge, which means all your money is working for you. So call for your free fact kit on Fidelity Investments tax-free funds. Call right now and you'll also get this bonus booklet, Understanding Tax-Free Investing. See how Fidelity gives you the facts you need to make up your own mind without pressure.
Hello, Fidelity.
Keep more of what you earn. Call 1-800-3284-100 today. Fidelity Investments. Common sense, uncommon results.
International Hour continues, followed by Early Prime after this local commercial break. Next on CNN.
Everyone has a dream. I don't always get an investing idea between 9 and 5. So when it clicks, I do my homework. And I call Charles Schwab. I can call Schwab at any hour for quotes, news, earnings. And when I buy or sell, I get commission savings, too.
For free information about Schwab services, call toll-free 800-257-1257.
I don't know exactly how to, words, what I want to know, what's the word, it's not coming out right.
It's easier done than said. Call 1-800-FLOWERS. Our name is our number. Even if you can't find the right words, we'll help you find the right flowers. And we'll deliver them anywhere to anyone in a matter of hours, guaranteed. So pick up the phone and dial.
1-800-FLOWERS. Carol Lee speaking.
Yeah, if you would...
Call 1-800-FLOWERS, the world's neighborhood florist.
This is CNN.
And now a look at some of the top stories we're following here on the International Hour. The leader of rebel troops in Venezuela has told his followers to surrender. Early today, rebel troops tried to storm government installations in Caracas, but loyal soldiers pushed them back. President Carlos Andrés Pérez was returning to the country and escaped capture or death when his plane was rerouted to a civilian airport. Tensions are high in a refugee camp in Hong Kong, where factional fighting took 21 lives yesterday. Adults and children were burned to death when a hut was set afire as rival groups fought with homemade weapons. Police today used tear gas to disperse two groups that seemed ready to fight. The rivalry stems from regional differences and from the split between those who have agreed to return home and those who are resisting repatriation. And now for a look at the day's business news, we go to Beverly Schuch, who is live at the New York Stock Exchange. Beverly?
Thanks, Frank. And we have a live rally underway right now on Wall Street. Some better than expected auto sales from Detroit's Big Three and a strong bond market encouraging investors. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up a strong 32 points at 3266. Volume, once again, is heavy, 206 million shares traded so far. Advancers beating out decliners 5-3. And on the broader and secondary markets, all four key indexes are also posting gains. Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan faced Congress today for the second time in less than a week. Greenspan told the House Budget Committee recent interest rate cuts should be enough to turn the U.S. economy around by spring, but the Fed chairman emphasized he would consider further easing if necessary. And some encouraging news about the economy. Americans are starting to buy more domestic cars. In late January, General Motors' U.S. car sales jumped 14%. So did Ford's, and Chrysler reports sales on a monthly basis. For all of January, Chrysler sales were down from a year ago, down 24%. Meanwhile, for the same period, Toyota's car sales rose 16%, and Honda's surged nearly 53%. Iraq is refusing to continue negotiations with the United Nations. Iraq was expected to discuss resumption of oil exports tomorrow with UN officials in Vienna. Iraq's ambassador to the UN told Reuters news service that the Security Council's conditions are too restrictive, and that news is helping boost oil prices in New York. Right now, a barrel of U.S. benchmark crude is up 24 cents at $19.20 a barrel. And finally, Princess Diana's new car is a major thorn in the side of British auto workers. The Princess of Wales is the first member of the royal family to drive a non-British car. She is leasing, and we are saying leasing, a German Mercedes worth $130,000. But Princess Diana will reportedly drive to public functions in a British Jaguar. And that's the latest in business news. We'll have the closing numbers in 1 hour. One last check right now shows the Dow is up 34 points. I'm Beverly Schuch reporting live from the New York Stock Exchange.
Thanks, Beverly. And you might want to take note of this since you're not far from the ski slopes. Coming up, strap on the skis and head downhill, but beware the trouble above. We'll tell you why the alpine slopes are a danger zone in the fight against ozone.
He says conservatives need a new leader that George Bush sold out. Can Pat Buchanan wrestle away the Republican nomination? The candidate and his agenda. Inside Politics 92, today at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on CNN.
Where do you want to be in 10 years?
Detroit to Minneapolis, Minneapolis to Detroit. That's not why I became a pilot. I'll tell you the run I want. St. Thomas to Saba Island. My own Grumman Mallard. Call it Dave's Airways. That's what I want for my investments. Now, how do we do it?
You can get there from here with Shearson Lehman Brothers.
Some dairies see industry standards as a place to stop, not quality checked. We set our standards higher. Which is why it doesn't take a leap of faith to see why we taste fresher. Look for the check in the queue, where the fresh taste will tell you we're better, because we're better than we have to be.
Diane Casto, breast cancer, 9-year survivor.
Ron Bensler, colon cancer, 7-year survivor.
Lorraine Green, breast cancer, 12-year survivor.
Sam Allspaw, lymphoma, 6-year survivor.
Call us, 1-800-227-3300. Our results speak for themselves.
Sandra Lanise, breast, then bone cancer, 12-year survivor.
And coming up at the top of the hour, early prime, and Sharyl Attkisson is here with a look ahead. Sharyl.
Coming up, Frank, for our U.S. viewers, President Bush goes shopping for supporters of his economic recovery plan and finds them among U.S. grocers. Prosecutors expect to wrap up their rape case against Mike Tyson following a day of setbacks for his defense. And the Coast Guard searches for a better safety net as more and more fishermen go to sea in boats that aren't coming back. Join Lou Waters and me at the top of the hour for Early Prime.
Thanks, Sharyl. Updating a story from yesterday, Japan's Prime Minister says today that the U.S. media misinterpreted his remark about American workers. Yesterday, Kiichi Miyazawa told lawmakers he thought Americans lacked a work ethic. He said U.S. workers were losing the drive to work by the sweat of their brow. Today, he told a Parliament committee that he had no intention of criticizing American workers. He said his comments were about his economic philosophy and based on reflections of Japan's economy. A foreign ministry spokesman said Mr. Miyazawa's comments were taken out of context. The Coast Guard says the flood of refugees fleeing Haiti has slowed to a trickle. Before the Supreme Court cleared the way for Haitians to be shipped back to their homeland, Coast Guard cutters picked up hundreds of refugees a day in the Caribbean. But in the past 3 days, only 48 Haitians have been rescued. Meantime, the first Haitians shipped out of Cuba began returning to their homes yesterday. Some criticized the U.S. for forcing them to return. The U.S. plans to repatriate some 1,500 Haitians a week for the next 2 months. The case of Nazi doctor Joseph Mengele may soon be resolved. His son, Rolf Jenkel, has given a blood sample for a DNA comparison to determine if a body found in Brazil is his father's. Experts identified the body, found in 1985, as Mengele's, but rumors that he is alive persist. Mengele is blamed for the deaths of more than 400,000 people at the Auschwitz Nazi death camp. The U.S. Space Agency, NASA, warns that the Earth's protective layer is thinning at an alarming rate. A new report says chlorine monoxide, a chemical that destroys the ozone layer, reached record levels over parts of the northern hemisphere last month. And as Andrew Veach reports, natural disasters such as volcanic activity may be aggravating the problem.
At the Kiruna space base in northern Sweden, nearly 300 scientists from Britain and 16 other countries are 2 months into the first concerted attempt to monitor the destruction of the ozone layer in the northern hemisphere. Their first results show that it's far worse than expected. Across Europe, from London north, the amount of chlorine in the atmosphere is enough to be causing ozone destruction over a wide area. The scientists warn ozone is already low over Europe this year, and there is a strong possibility of loss over the next few weeks. The results are confirmed by the US Space Agency NASA. The agency says that levels of chlorine in the atmosphere, mostly from CFCs and aerosols, could lead to significant ozone destruction over the northern hemisphere, perhaps even to an ozone hole over the Arctic. The British team, led by John Pyle from Cambridge, has found the atmosphere above Europe is loaded with man-made chemicals which are eating away at the ozone layer.
Whether we will get very large ozone losses this year remains to be seen, but the conditions for significant ozone loss, I think greater than before in the northern hemisphere, are certainly present.
We've seen reductions of up to 8% at times in the past. Are we saying that it'll get worse than that?
I think it will get worse than that. I think the question really is how much worse than that.
This year the destruction has been more rapid. Millions of tons of dust and gas were ejected into the atmosphere from the Philippines volcano Mount Pinatubo in June. The debris have been blown around the globe. The amount of material suspended high in the atmosphere over Europe has increased tenfold, and it's interacting with man-made chemicals to hasten the destruction of the ozone. Alpine skiers may be most at risk. The ozone layer protects people from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. The danger will become clearer when the experiments in Kiruna yield more precise measurements of the extent of the hole.
Well, United Nations scientists have predicted at the end of last year that for a sustained 10% loss in ozone, and we've already got 8% over the UK, that would mean an extra 300,000 extra cases of skin cancer per year worldwide, and up to 1.75 million extra cases of cataracts per year worldwide.
The tests at Kiruna show for the first time that an ozone hole similar to the one above the South Pole may be developing above Europe. Europe has agreed to phase out CFCs by 1997. The UK is willing to ban their use for all but essential medical purposes a year earlier.
In the U.S., proposals are working their way through Congress that would toughen restrictions on ozone-destroying chemicals. An Australian medical student has defied the odds to survive a 6-week ordeal in the Himalayas. James Scott remains in serious condition, but doctors say he is improving. Scott became separated from his group during a heavy snowfall, December 22nd. He had no food with him other than 2 chocolate bars. Searchers said for weeks they'd been looking for a body and were surprised to find Scott alive, and they were more amazed to learn that he suffered no frostbite despite the freezing temperatures in the Himalayas. And up next on CNN World Report, a conversation with a Venezuelan journalist about recent events there. Stay with us.
AT&T is constantly searching for new ways to help our customers save money on long distance.
Forecasts, look at profiles, we do comparisons.
And what we've recently discovered is remarkably simple.
He just got the airline tickets, so...
Those customers who spend over $11 a month on out-of-state long distance could start saving right away by signing up for one of the AT&T Reach Out America plans. If you spend over $11 a month, you could save on long distance, too. All it takes is one call to 1-800-422-3000.
AT&T, this is Terry. How can I help you?
Hi, Terry. I was wondering if you could help us save some money on our long-distance calls.
This is about people. We have to put ourselves in the customer's place.
Why don't you tell me a little about the way you use long distance?
Well, we make long-distance calls all day long.
You'll learn how you could save 24 hours a day. 25% on calls made after 5 p.m.
Say 25% is a pretty good chunk.
And on some plans, enjoy a daytime discount.
I guess you can say we're pretty good customers.
Who are you talking to?
Carrie, would you mind repeating that?
Not at all.
Reach Out America makes saving money simple by helping you save when you call without changing the way
You
you
want to pick
call.
up the phone and be able to call your relatives, your loved ones, and not think how much it's going to cost you.
You can save 24 hours a day. There's a 25% discount in the evenings and a daytime discount as well.
My husband has a sister in Madrid that he calls sometimes.
That's perfect. We offer a discount on calls all over the world.
What about AT&T calling cards? We each have one.
No problem. You can save on calls wherever you are.
If you spend over $11 a month on long distance, there's a Reach Out America plan that can help you
Do you
save.
really think that?
So call us now at 1-800-422-3000.
Good enough for me.
Thank you for calling AT&T.
Honey, that sounded pretty good. Why don't we sign up?
We just did.
Great. Who do we call?
Call AT&T and find out how one of the Reach Out America plans could help you save.
And time now for our CNN World Report segment, where we bring you news as reported from the perspective of broadcasters around the globe. As we have reported, the situation in Venezuela remains tense following an unsuccessful coup attempt. Joining us now on the phone from Caracas for an update and a look at what lies ahead is Nelson Bocaranda of Venezuela's Venevision. Mr. Bocaranda, can you hear me all right?
Perfectly. I hear you perfectly, Frank. Good afternoon for you and for all our friends at the World Report.
Good afternoon. Can you tell me, sir, what is the reaction on the ground among Venezuelan citizens with whom you're speaking and listening to the events that occurred overnight?
I think this makes some points of reflection here in Venezuela, because now they will think that even not only them, but all the political leaders, if the economic reforms are justified for the very poor people that sometimes doesn't have anything to eat. In this democracy of 34 years, you cannot tell that freedom is possible to be eaten. Freedom cannot be eaten. And then hunger and famine don't go along with freedom. And that's one of the questions that arise here. If the people don't believe in the democratic system, they will not go out to the street, as in 1958, more than 30 years ago, to defend this beautiful system of freedom. And the political parties will have to adapt themselves now to the new economic world that we are living in. And before this coup d'etat, they said always that this won't ever happen again here after 34 years of democracy. Now they have to think more about that. Also, the industrialized world, I think, will have to think a little more about this free market economy. And those are 4 points that arouse today when we are again resting after this coup d'etat, in which, one more time, as you say, brother, the point of view of the broadcasters, the president of Venezuela came to our TV station after his palace was surrounded by the rebels, and he established his bunker to return there, and also our station was the one who put on the air all the leaders of the country to restore democracy.
Mr. Bocaranda, were you present at the station when the president was there?
Yeah, the president came here about 12:30 in the evening, in the morning, and then stayed here about 4.5 hours.
Did he look
alone? He came on the side of the palace, one of the entrances, with his only with army attaché and 2 bodyguards, and he came into a regular car. He left his caravan and parade cars over there, came here and came alone into the channel with these 3 people, and from here he called his Ministry of Defense, the other people, the leaders of the different states in the country and the political parties, and from here is where he received the call at this station from your President George Bush and from leaders of all over the world.
Mr. Bocaranda, in one word, because we're almost out of time, did the president look rattled, very upset?
I think so, because he has the guts before to do these reforms that people said were extreme in some cases, and in some areas they were working also for the foreign investment and so. But here, you remember, we have February 3 years ago, same problem with the people on the streets, were quite different than today from the army.
Mr. Bocaranda, I'm afraid we are out of time.
He is more sensitive about this.
I'm afraid we're out of time, but thank you very much for your report and for your help in Caracas. UN military officers in Yugoslavia report success in maintaining a ceasefire between rival Croatian and Serbian forces. The commander of UN troops say the 32-day-old truce, brokered by Special Envoy Cyrus Vance, is holding. The ceasefire is the main condition for UN Security Council approval to send 10,000 UN troops into Yugoslavia. But one Serbian leader is defying the Yugoslav presidency and refusing to accept the UN peace plan. We get more from RTV Belgrade with the Serbian perspective.
War or peace in Yugoslavia? The question is the result of the political meetings held in the last 3 days at the end of the quiet month on the front line. Yugoslav presidency spent 3 days trying to persuade Milan Babic, leader of the Serbs from Krajina, to accept the proposal of UN General Secretary Special Envoy Cyrus Vance concerning the deployment of peacekeeping forces in the crisis region. After lengthy talks, Milan Babic said that the guarantees given by UN Security Council and Yugoslav presidency are not sufficient for avoiding the threat of a new genocide of Croatian forces over Serbs living within the administrative Croatian borders set by the former communist regime in Yugoslavia. At the same time, demonstrations were organized in the administrative center of Krajina region, where 5,000 people offered support to Mr. Babic. This, however, does not end Serbian dispute, as in several towns in Krajina, the Serbs agreed with Mr. Vance's plan as an acceptable one for the political solution of Yugoslav crisis. Vice President of Yugoslav presidency, Mr. Branko Kostic, blamed the leader of Krajina for having chosen the option of war. Mr. Kostic said that all Serbs except Mr. Babic agree that Mr. Vance's plan is probably the last chance for peace, and that its acceptance cannot be considered as trait of Serbian interest. Thus, the peoples of Yugoslavia are neither closer to nor farther from a peaceful solution of the crisis. Both the observers and the citizens await with hope the next session of the UN Security Council. This is Ivana Gazikalovic of Radio Television Belgrade for CNN World Report.
And when CNN World Report returns, South African children are given the chance to experience nature like never before.
Usually, when you send flowers out of town, you give the order to somebody who takes a cut. Then he passes the order to somebody else who takes a cut. But now there's Flowers Direct that actually lets you speak to a florist in the town where you're sending the flowers. Flowers Direct, or We Cut, is the middleman. Call Flowers Direct now, 1-800-621-2121.
It's gone. But it isn't.
Introducing an incredible Vicks cough drop like you've never known before.
It's gone, but it's still working.
A cough drop so powerful, it keeps on working even after it's gone.
It's still working.
All new Extra Strength Vicks. Extra strength with twice the Vicks vapor medicine to relieve your cough and help your scratchy throat and stuffy nose feel better. So try new Extra Strength Vicks. Extra strong to work even after the drop is gone.
It's still working.
Hollywood Pictures presents Sean Connery in an explosive adventure.
I found a cure for the plague of the 20th century, and now I've lost.
What?
Haven't you ever lost anything? Now you have it, now you don't.
From the director of Die Hard and The Hunt for Red October.
We need help.
Don't you presume to tell me how to follow up.
He turned his back on civilization, only to discover he had the power to save it. Medicine Man, rated PG-13. Starts Friday, February 7th at a theater near you.
CNN is proud to present a continuing series called Democracy in America. We'll explain what candidates are saying, what they've done, and talk to real people about issues they want addressed. Democracy in America, only on CNN.
Countries of the Black Sea region will soon form a new economic trade zone, thanks to a declaration initialed in Ankara, Turkey, yesterday. The idea for a Black Sea cooperation zone was first proposed back in 1990. With the changes that have taken place in what was the Soviet Union, several former republics have sought to strengthen their economic ties in the area. We have more now from Turkish television.
Turkey and 8 other countries in the Black Sea region have signed a document to boost economic relations in the region. Foreign ministers of Turkey, Russia, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia attended a signing meeting in Istanbul. Turkish President Turgut Özal told the meeting that the Black Sea Economic Cooperation Pact, initiated by Turkey and 8 ex-communist states, would help transform the region. The president said that as the countries of the region made further progress to democracy and free market economy, the collaboration in the region would intensify. Mr. Özal first proposed a Black Sea cooperation zone among Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, and the Soviet Union 3 years ago. Since then, a draft document has been revised to take into account of the emergence of independent former Soviet republics. The Black Sea Cooperation Pact aims to promote free trade and private enterprise among Turkey and its neighbors in the Balkans and the former Soviet Union. It envisages cooperation in transport, communications, energy, agriculture, mining, tourism, industry, and the environment, as well as technical exchange. It seeks gradually to remove trade barriers and promote small and medium-scale enterprises. A joint bank will be set up to finance projects with possible assistance from Japan. On the occasion of the meeting, Turkey also signed protocols establishing diplomatic relations with Moldova and Ukraine. Ankara has recognized all former Soviet republics and formed diplomatic links with Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. The meeting followed weekend talks between Turkish and Greek Prime Minister in Davos, Switzerland. During this meeting, Turkish Prime Minister Süleyman Demirel invited Greece to join in the Black Sea Cooperation project. In statements after the Davos meeting, Mr. Demirel and Greek Prime Minister Konstantin Mitsotakis pledged to improve Turkish-Greek relations. A joint communique said the two neighbors would sign an agreement of friendship and cooperation. The agreement is to be signed during a planned visit of Mr. Mitsotakis to Turkey this summer. This is Ümit Enginsoy from Turkish television, reporting for the CNN World Report.
Children from across Africa are learning the importance of protecting their environment and their heritage at a special school now in South Africa. The Wilderness School gives youngsters the chance to touch the plants and the animals as they learn about nature. South African Broadcasting Corporation provides our report.
Situated in one of the most scenic parts of South Africa's Transvaal province, the Lapalala Wilderness School has stood at the forefront of youth conservation educational programs. At least 3,000 children pass through its gates each year. The school attracts children from around Africa who want to learn about the environment, how it functions, but most importantly, how to protect it. The children are brought here by their teachers for about 5 days. They're given the opportunity to get in touch with nature, to actually feel the plants and insects they're learning about. Underprivileged children from various shelters around Johannesburg are sponsored by companies and individuals to learn about nature here for a week.
The importance of an establishment such as Lapalala Wilderness School is so vital, I believe, and in terms of one's formal education, it should be linked to it. For far too long, we have neglected environmental issues. And the time is now right for us to bring it into the formal sector. And every school-going child should have that opportunity of an environmental experience at least once in their lifetime.
The school is run by the Wilderness Trust, an organization formed with the aim of educating people to conserve and preserve their environment. The children attending this camp are from South Africa's northern neighbor, Botswana. The children are taught about insects, basic survival tactics. They're also made aware of how plants and trees can be used by humans for basic everyday functions. Who would have thought that the African guarri could be used as a toothbrush?
Yeah, that's a good advert, eh?
This wilderness school at Lapalala has proved so successful that the Wilderness Trust is hoping to extend its programs throughout southern Africa. After 5 days with the Lapalala field officers, children are given a new perspective on the world around them. What conservationists are hoping for is that the children will use this experience to transcend social barriers and make conservation a positive element in their lives. For the CNN World Report, this is Catherine Brown at Lapalala, South Africa.
And that's it for the CNN World Report and for the International Hour as well this day. I'm Frank Sesno in Washington. And now with a look at what's ahead on Early Prime, here's Sharyl Attkisson. Sharyl.
Frank, coming up for our U.S. viewers, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan predicts the economy will turn around by summer. It's Old Home Week for the boys of summer who made good, and actress Tippi Hedren takes us on a tour of Shambhala. Join Lou Waters and me for Early Prime next here on CNN.
Coming up, Early Prime, followed by Inside Politics 92, after a word from your local cable systems here on CNN.
Brings home the tropics.
Introducing PowerBook from Apple. It will let you run MS-DOS software. It will let you run Macintosh software. It will let you run away.
For business, home, or education, let the computer professionals at Beacon Micro Center be your choice for before and after the sale consulting. Beacon Micro Center, your authorized Apple dealer.
1,050 people on the line. 1,050 people on the line right now.
This is a deal.
At this very moment, you could be missing out on the most remarkable sales event ever, the Home Shopping Club Bargathon.
Wonderful. I think it's fantastic. I think it's the most fantastic buy.
Bargathon, where prices keep dropping and dropping.
When I saw this, I just really flipped.
You could be missing a Bargathon right now. Why wait? Tune in Home Shopping Club now and get in on the sale of a lifetime.
For Harlan Edwards, it was a day he'll never forget. Over at Leo's,
I never went.
he took his daily shot at getting rich, and for the first time, won. But what he remembers most
The liberation of Kuwait
is what he did once he heard that war had started.
You can hear the bombs now. They are hitting.
Harlan sat down in front of the television, fairly certain that the world was now changed forever. Not to mention our way of learning about it.
None of us will ever forget.
This is CNN.
Rebels try to overthrow the president of Venezuela.
Mike Tyson on trial. The mother of the woman he's charged with raping testifies against him.
And why are so many fishermen dying off the coast of Maine? Hello, this is Early Prime. I'm Lou Waters.
I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Also in this program, two baseball superstars rekindle some memories on the old sandlot.
And actress Tippi Hedren. These days, Hollywood is not the first place on her mind.
First, our top stories. For those who have been waiting for interest rates to fall even further, a reason for hope. 1 week after saying he'd rather not tinker with interest rates, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan now says he will consider another interest rate cut if needed.
We expect that the amount of monetary ease in the pipeline is adequate to turn the economy onto the path of sustained recovery. But assessing the economic outlook at the present time is extraordinarily difficult. We are, of course, continuing to evaluate whether some additional insurance in the way of further monetary ease would be appropriate.
Last week, when Greenspan said he wasn't planning any more interest rate cuts, stock prices dropped. Today, the market was up and down. We'll get an update on Wall Street's closing numbers in just a few minutes.
President Bush hit the road again today, trying to gather support for his so-called economic recovery plan. During a visit to a grocers convention in Orlando, he lambasted his critics again and insisted his ideas will work if Congress goes along. The grocers gave him a generally warm reception, much warmer than the one he got yesterday when he met with the nation's governors at the White House. At that meeting, the Colorado governor, Roy Romer, stole the spotlight by criticizing the president's economic plan. White House spokesman Marlon Fitzwater today called Romer's action a cheap trick. A Russian newspaper is reporting Russian stores could begin running out of food in 19 days. Russians were hoping that the high prices brought on by radical reform would at least help replenish bare store shelves, but that hasn't happened. The newspaper reports the government believes stocks of beef and poultry will run out in 19 days, vegetable oil in 20 days, butter within a month. A trade ministry spokesman says other former Soviet republics are not selling food to Russia because they need it for themselves.
Members of the Organization of American States are gathered this hour in Washington discussing last night's failed military coup in Venezuela. Venezuelan President Carlos Andres Perez told President Bush the uprising is under control now. Rebel paratroopers attacked the presidential palace in Caracas. They surrendered to government troops following an intense firefight. The United States, along with Latin America and Western Europe, has condemned the attempt to overthrow Venezuela's democratic government. Police in Hong Kong have been firing tear gas to break up groups of Vietnamese boat people. Refugees have been gathering inside a detention camp where 21 people, including 5 children, burned to death yesterday in what might have been a battle over hot water. More than 500 Chinese police have been patrolling the camp today to prevent further violence.
The Japanese have been busy apologizing and explaining away remarks that have insulted American workers and fueled more hard feelings. CNN's Todd Benjamin reports on what the Japanese really meant to say.
Damage control was the order of the day for Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa. Miyazawa said his remarks on Americans lacking a work ethic wasn't meant as a criticism. The former finance minister said he meant to stress the importance of producing things and creating values by the sweat of the brow, not through the financial gains of the late 1980s. But even a member of Miyazawa's own party says there's a general feeling American workers aren't up to snuff.
Reading a little bit between the lines, of course, is the firm belief here in Japan that the reason the bilateral trade imbalance between Japan and the U.S. continues is because the work ethic, productivity, and general working conditions in America are declining.
Miyazawa is a man of international experience who's in political trouble at home. His initial remark may have been made for domestic consumption.
Here in Japan, there is the upper house election this summer coming up. And no doubt that Miyazawa wants to send a signal to his domestic voters that he's not about to be just bullied around by America.
Whatever the intention, Miyazawa's remarks didn't go down well in the United States, nor did remarks by a former trade minister that American auto workers basically work hard only 3 days a week. The General Motors spokesperson in Tokyo found that remark not only wrong, but a bit ironic.
Are we including the workers that work at the Japanese transplants in Smyrna, Tennessee, in Georgetown, Kentucky, in Marysville, Ohio? The fact remains that American workers from Lansing, Michigan to Wentzville, Missouri, all across the United States are excellent workers.
Just 2 weeks ago, Japan's Speaker of the House caused an uproar when he reportedly called American workers lazy and illiterate. Tensions between America and Japan were already running high, brought on by a stalled U.S. economy, an upcoming election, and a $41 billion trade deficit with Japan alone. Inflammatory rhetoric on both sides of the ocean is only adding more fuel to the fire. Todd Benjamin, CNN Business News, Tokyo.
Princess Diana is the first British royal in living memory to drive an import, and she's running into trouble. The metallic red Mercedes wins the scorn of trade union and parliamentary leaders. They're unhappy about the German-built two-seater. They want Diana to buy British. The princess is leasing, not buying the car, and she will appear publicly in a British-made Jaguar.
The prosecution has rested its case at the Mike Tyson trial in Indianapolis. Today, the mother of the alleged rape victim burst into tears in dramatic testimony. She told the court her 18-year-old daughter was so traumatized by Tyson that she began sleeping with her mother for comfort. The witness never looked at Tyson, as she testified. The boxer is charged with the rape of a beauty pageant contestant last summer. The former world heavyweight champ says the Miss Black America hopeful consented to sex.
A Texas judge has overturned a ban against homosexuals on the Dallas police force. That ruling negates a recent vote by the Dallas City Council upholding the ban. It may open the door for 27-year-old lesbian Mika England to join the force. Dallas is the only large city in the country to ban gay officers and classifies homosexuality as deviant behavior. The ban is based on a 112-year-old sodomy law now ruled unconstitutional for the second time. The first ruling is under appeal, and one city councilman says this ruling should be appealed as well.
Certainly I'm disappointed at any time when a judge makes, in my opinion, a raw judicial power grab, asserts his own particular political beliefs over the views of the legislature and the voters, and 100 years of constitutional law. I think it's a sad day.
It's time in this day and age to come to reality that gay people in society have just as much right to equal opportunity as anyone else.
Micah England says she will reapply to the department and expects to be hired.
Among the stories still ahead on the CNN Early Prime, the stuff legends are made of. This one, Lizzie Borden's, a new search for clues in the double murder mystery that's defied solution for nearly a century.
Commercial fishermen, hard times, may have some casting their fate to the wind and losing a lot more than their catch.
And we'll tell you why, a generation after one of the most memorable Hitchcock thrillers, Tippi Hedren, is still up to her ears in birds.
CNN's Early Prime, news and information for people in the prime of life.
You, my friend, can use some fun. Big fun. Las Vegas, Atlantic City, cruise ships. But you got to take this along, the Players Club card. It's going to save you a lot of money. 25 to 50% off fabulous resort hotels, 25% off meals and drinks, up to 50% off shows and entertainment. Come on. Call Players Club for much more information free. You're too smart to pay full price.
New members get 2 free nights in Las Vegas or Atlantic City when a club books their flights. Call toll-free now.
NBA Wednesday on TNT. The Rockets know it's tough on the road, but it's even tougher in the Boston Garden. The Rockets take on the Celtics Wednesday at 8 on TNT. Bigger than life.
Freedent's the one. Only one gum passes the test when you've got dental work, and that's Freedent. Freedent won't stick to your dental work, so you can be confident chewing it. And because it also moistens your mouth and freshens your breath, Freedent's in a class by itself.
Freedent's the one that took the stick out of gum, and Freedent moistens your mouth. Yeah, moistens your mouth and freshens your breath while you chew.
Non-stick Freedent moistens your mouth and freshens your breath. Flu epidemic declared. Entire U.S. affected. Fever, congestion, body aches. What will you do? Get serious medicine. Doctors recommend Theraflu. Theraflu is hot liquid medicine. Strong therapy for flu symptoms. Hot liquid therapy that works fast. What will you do when you get the flu? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Strong therapy for flu symptoms.
The Murine Earwax Removal System has drops that safely loosen hardened wax when used as directed, plus an ear washer to gently flush wax away. Murine, the complete medically approved system to safely remove earwax.
Increasing numbers of commercial fishermen are being lost at sea off the coast of Maine. Jim Hill reports the heightened danger is blamed in part on inexperience and the economy.
The day begins at 3 a.m. with the fishermen who face the harsh weather off the coast of Maine.
About 30-mile-an-hour southwest winds, 7-foot seas, water temperature is about 40.
More and more of these folks who go down to the sea in ships are not coming back.
And high tide at 6:41.
The State Marine Patrol says 14 people have died during the past year, nearly triple the accident rate of recent years. Some say it's the tough economy which now makes commercial fishing such a dangerous profession, forcing the lobster, shrimp, and urchin fishermen to make hard choices.
Are you going to put food on the table, or are you going to buy some more flares? Are you going to buy clothes for your kids, or are you going to buy a new life raft?
In the state of Maine, anyone who pays the mail-in license fee can become a commercial fisherman. Right now, that adds up to roughly 15,000 people using everything from weekend water ski boats to 100-foot-long trawlers. Greg Griffin has been hauling lobster traps for 30 years.
Yeah, that's a couple anyway.
Now, with businesses throughout Maine cutting jobs, he sees a lot of new faces at sea, some still wet behind the ears.
We've seen a bunch of newcomers. There isn't any kind of a training program per se. The fellas that are in the real little boats that are chasing the urchins around seem to be taking what I call some unprudent chances.
But even the experienced take chances in a bad economy. Jerry Balzano's unloading his catch after a 19-hour day.
I force it more, yes.
and I've been at it a long, long time.
The U.S. Coast Guard is now armed with new safety regulations, requiring exposure suits, radios, and other emergency gear. But among those who make a living off their daily catch, it's catching on slowly.
With the new fishing vessel safety regulations, we have an awful lot of boats that do not meet it. I would have to say it's up in the neighborhood of 75%.
The battle against the elements will never change in these rough waters. Perhaps a brighter economy will prove to be the best safety net of all. Jim Hill for CNN off the coast of Maine.
A forensics expert hopes he can resolve some questions a jury never could nearly a century ago in Fall River, Massachusetts. James Starr spent Monday conducting a radar scan in the town's Oak Grove Cemetery, looking for the skulls of Andrew and Abby Borden. The Bordens were hacked to death 100 years ago. Their skulls were used as evidence at the trial of their 33-year-old daughter, Lizzie. She was charged, but never convicted of their murders. Starr hopes to find out if an axe really was the murder weapon.
The fate of flyer Amelia Earhart has been a mystery for more than half a century. A scientist says now he's 90% sure a piece of aluminum found on a Pacific island last fall is a piece of Earhart's Lockheed Electra. He is the head of the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery. Earhart and her navigator disappeared on a round-the-world flight in 1937.
50 years have now passed since Allied prisoners of war built the death railway between Thailand and Burma. Survivors have gathered at Hellfire Pass, one of the deadliest points along the tracks. They are commemorating the nearly 16,000 POWs and 90,000 Asian workers who died building the railway between 1942 and 43.
Coming up in Jim Huber's Sports, old friends now reunited in the big leagues take a trip back to where it all began.
Attention all former military personnel. If you are between the ages of 30 and 69 and you served in any branch of the armed forces, you are now eligible to apply